I know the term hidden gem gets thrown around a lot, and I hate to add to that pile, but Wayward really is truly an obscure hidden gem. And it sucks because it's like, excuse me, I totally understand why more people don't play it, but then I don't understand why more people don't play it. It's a weird mixture of these two opposing feelings where it's like I understand that it's a 8-bit pixelated game with deep mechanics and it's a simulation. It's like a life simulation. So it's like even though graphically it caters more to older players like me, I will say that it's deceiving because it looks like it reminds me of Project Zomboid. It looks kind of not cartoonish, but like not childish neither, because that sounds more like an insult. It just it doesn't look like it's not a graphic intensive game. Very simple graphics. That's what Wayward looks like, but it's deceiving because it's so deep. There's so many mechanics. It took me forever just to find out how to start a fire, and it's a survival game, but also a simulation game, like I pointed out. I see why more people don't play it because it's lacking in the graphics department and it's not accessible. It's accessible like spec wise, meaning that you do not need a powerful rig to run this game at all. This could probably be a mobile game if implemented correctly, although it'll be a little difficult because there's a lot of menus and a lot of it works better for PC. Of course, nowadays I would say the modern gamer, not all gamers, but the modern gamers worried about graphics, and of course they want something that involves a gun, some sort of an FPS, because those are what rules supreme, at least here in the United States. So half of me with Wayward goes like, yeah, I totally see why people won't enjoy this game, and I remember letting my friend play, and she ended up liking it. But she's very easygoing. She ends up liking most things that I show her. Most things. There's every now and then I'll make her play a game and she's like, no, I didn't enjoy that at all. I was like, I understand. Like DayZ, she wasn't a big fan of DayZ. She said it terrified her. And we didn't even play, we didn't even play like on official PvP servers. I just put I added some mods, very simple mods. It was just uh, bots basically, like AI. So AI will spawn randomly from time to time. And I'm not gonna lie, it was terrifying because you can lose it all. You know how DayZ is. It's like you get shot, one bullet can like turn the trajectory of your entire course, your entire 5 hour run can be ruined with one bullet. So it is terrifying, but she wasn't crazy about it, and I can understand why, because that's also like a simulation, right? Like it takes a lot to do so little, right? In other games, like for example, I'll use the campfire example one more time. It's like in other games, you just chop wood, you throw the fucking wood on the ground, light it on fire. That's it, quick, effortless. It's not like that in DayZ. There's a lot of steps because it's more realistic. Same thing with Wayward, and you would never guess because if you were to look up a screenshot or a video of what this game looks like, you'd be like, "What the hell is this?" It looks like Dragon Warrior, like the original 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System Dragon Warrior. Like it looks very pixelated, but it's so deceiving. And the music, my God, the music. There, it's one of those games where like you're listening to it and you're like, there's no reason the soundtrack for this game should sound this good. I love it. I always put the volume up when certain tracks come up, which is most tracks because I enjoy most tracks. And it's like this hip hopish, a lot of bass, a lot of very cool. It's like chip tunes mixed with like more modern. I think I hear like pianos in there at one point in some tracks. And let me take a sip of this. So yeah, I can't rave enough about the OST for Wayward. Like that alone is worth the buy if you don't actually buy the game. Which by the way, it's extremely cheap on the Steam store. It's like $8. I highly suggest you buy it. I found it for much cheaper somewhere else for like $2. I'm sure if you do some digging around, you can find it for cheaper too. But I kind of felt bad about that because I was like, maybe I should support the dev because this is a game I do enjoy. I dropped about About close to 18 hours on it so far. About 17.7 exactly. Um, I don't know if I see myself continuing playing it, not because I'm not enjoying it, just because I've got other games brewing, and this is I don't know, this just isn't a game that I can say that I will play like I will main it. This should be a game that I would not I will leave. I think I will always leave Wayward sitting around on my computer because it doesn't take a lot of hard drive space, and it's always cool to just jump in and then jump out. You know what I mean? Uh, but I can totally see how someone would main it, 100%. Like it's very complex. It's very cool. Just talking about it now makes me want to play it. Like, anyways, yeah, it's sad because it appeals to a certain demographic. It's a niche game, sadly. So, and already right off the bat, you're at a disadvantage when it comes to mass market share or max profitability because it only caters to such a small slice of gamers. So, as far as this game being highly successful, I don't see that. And it has nothing to do with quality. It's just it's aimed at a certain demographic. It's definitely not a game you just pick up and play. It's a game that you need to invest some serious time in order for you to get going. Just building, you got to worry about fatigue. You got to rest. You can literally work yourself to death. And once again, this is all coming from like a small little pixelated game that it's just like you would never guess in a million years that this game's so deep. It's like a super deconstructed DayZ or something. It's like by that I mean like it's like a simulation game that's been deconstructed, but the mechanics are still intact. I won't say that I wish there were more games like this because I know for a fact there is like Caves of Cod, Neo Scavenger, what's the other one? Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead. I haven't played any of these other games. Wayward is the only type of game that I played that's similar to all those games. Although I am looking at Neo Scavenger. That game looks pretty cool. It looks like right up my alley. Like got Fallout vibes, but also like pretty realistic. Maybe I'll pick it up if I ever see it on sale or whatever for whatever reason. Yeah, you basically it's like a classic survival game. It does have this interesting mechanic where the island it's alive and it's tied to a reputation system. So basically, you're dropped off into this island. At least that's the first biome. I believe there's different biomes in this game. I think there's a oh, I know there's a cold one because I seen like a sailboat getting chased by like a polar bear. So I was like, holy shit, that's something else I got to worry about. And it's also a hardcore core game, by the way, which is permadeath. Is by default it's on because that's the way the game's intended to play. It's supposed to make you play smart or you'll lose your character forever. Well, the one cool thing is it's like like Project Zomboid, whatever you build in the world stays in the world. But if your character dies in that world, like if you build a house with one character and then you go out to do some adventuring with that character and you happen to die, that old character's house will still be there. You can jump into the world and that house will still be there as well as all of the armor that your last adventure dropped. You just won't have the skills that your old adventure dropped. So like if you were very skilled at fighting with your old adventure and then you pick up your new adventurer picks up your old adventurer stuff, he won't be as proficient with it. So, but that's still cool. That means that it's not a total loss. It is a loss in the sense that you lost all the skills your characters once had, but at least you can still start off with good gear and whatever the case may be. I'm a little mixed about the permadeath thing. Thank God there's an option to shut it off. You can play in casual mode. I haven't. I've been playing in hardcore core mode. I'm a little weirded out. Not weirded out, but I'm a little. I don't know how to feel about the fact that like I was dying so much in my world on hardcore mode that it just switched me automatically to casual. I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like games making decisions for you. Like I feel like they should ask you, like, hey, you know, if you're having difficulty with hardcore mode, would you like to switch to casual? But in this case, it was not like that at all. It just switched me directly to casual. And once again, I don't like the fact that they removed the choice and they just kind of like strong armed you into, you know, playing casual mode. I wish you had that option, but at the same time, I wasn't mad because I was like, maybe I should be playing in casual mode because I feel like I'll enjoy the game a lot more. Because if I die in casual mode, I won't lose any of my skills. I'll drop all the stuff at the place of death, but I'll respawn at the last place that I slept in with my character's skills still intact. So it's no permadeath. It's more just like a minor annoyance or a major annoyance, depending on how far you are in the world, you know, and you didn't put down a bedroll, then you're really fucked. Maybe I'll play in that mode after I lose my hardcore character in my current world, which is gonna happen. You know, I don't want it to happen. I keep tricking myself into going like, no, I'm gonna make it all the way with this one. Oh yeah, right. I think I was fighting like a fucking what was it, a ghost inside of a cave, and that motherfucker hit me with like so much force, he took a shitload of my health, and I was like, all right, I'm out. But yeah, I try my best to refrain from saying things like, "Oh, I wish there were more games like this." There's always more games like that. I did that with StarCraft. I was like, "I wish there was more games," and then I ended up playing like two different Get Out and The Will to Live Online, which Get Out I could make a whole video on. As a matter of fact, did I make a whole video on? Oh God, I did. Wow, Jesus, I don't even remember. I talk a lot, in case you haven't noticed. Um, yeah, turns out that there's a lot more games like that. They're probably, well, they aren't as well known, hence why I haven't heard about them. But Wayward has this one system that, once again, like with many things in my life, I'm very confused about, right? It has this reputation system where the island is alive, meaning that if you like harvest shit from the island, which is like if you harvest, like if you mine granite rocks, if you cut down trees, if you harm any of the wildlife there, the bunnies, the goats, the island, you actually get negative reputation because what you do what you do to the island directly affects your reputation. So if you get by hurting the bunnies and by mining and by uh, doing woodwork, which involves taking stuff from the island, you get a negative reputation. And the higher your negative reputation, then the more the island sends out these nasty creatures, these monsters, to interrupt you while you're sleeping or while you're resting on the ground. And then you have to fight high level monsters. They can kill you because the island's pissed at you. And on the other end, if you gather things gingerly, I guess, and you like make a garden and you don't harm none of the creatures and you don't mine none of the rocks and you don't chop down none of the trees, if you just respect the earth like a hippie, then you actually get positive points. The island likes that. So you can choose which, and what I like about it is that there is no wrong choice. Like you would automatically think that, oh, if I'm hurting the island, I'm a bad guy. No, you're not. Sometimes you have to do things to survive that aren't good, right? Like I can't believe I'm comparing a 8-bit pixel game to real life, but that's what this whole podcast is about, right? There are so many parallels to life in video games. As a matter of fact, I think there is no other. I've said this before. There is no other thing in life that can draw parallels better to life than video games. You have fighting. Fighting's always a good one, right? I said this before. Like people go, I've been battling for this raise, and it's like battling, right? You're not literally battling means fighting, right? But you're not literally fighting. You know, Jimmy from accounting, he's not literally fighting people. He's just being, you know, using it as a metaphor, right? Like I've been battling. But anyways, best parallels are video games. So what I'm trying to say is, like in real life, if you were stuck in an island, right, and it's been 3 days since you last ate, and you fashioned a sharpened stick, you made some sort of a spear out of a sharpened stick, and you see a cute little bunny run across the field or wherever you're stranded, you're gonna look at that little fucker as food. That's just what it is, right? You're gonna find a way to kill him and find a way to cook him. It's not personal. It's just you have to survive. So like that's what this island is about, and that's what the reputation system is about. They're not chastising you for chopping trees down or mining or killing creatures. They're kind of going like, okay, if you do this, just understand the consequences. And same thing with if you decide to behave and not chop anything down and have an alternate food source, or which means like fishing. Fishing is okay for some reason. I guess you can harm fish, but not actual. That's where it gets dicey. You know, I feel like living creature is a living creature, but fishing somehow is okay. Whatever, gardening is okay. Like, understand that if you decide to live this way, right, in the game, you're gonna have a peaceful experience. Meaning that you're barely gonna fight any creatures unless you're probably like spelunking under the caves and stuff like that. Then you might find some dark cave creatures or some shit. That's probably the only way you could probably get um some sort of an action or some sort of combat is if you are behaving, but you also want some sort of action, and you would go into these caves or these cave entrances that lead you to, more ores, and that's what I'm assuming at least. But my character's reputation is bad because I've been surviving off the land. I made an entire base, small little house with flooring, and so the island's pissed at me. But I'm not going haywire. Like I'm not like I'm only taking what I need, and it's still not the highest reputation, but also not the lowest. Like I'm just doing enough because I can't do this whole peaceful playthrough. Plus, I want to do battling. I want to be able to craft better armor and weapons. And combat is just like a Nintendo game. You just bump, like an RPG Nintendo game that's turn based. Like you just bump into them and somehow you hit them. Right? Unless you have like a bow and arrow. In that case, you can actually shoot and hit them. But where was I? Oh yeah. So I don't know. It's addicting, man. Like somebody in the comments wrote when I was reading the reviews to this game, they pretty much summed it up for me. Like they said that this game scratches an itch they never knew they had. Although I will say that I've always had this itch. I've always enjoyed like simulators and difficult games because I feel like just the harder it is to do, the more rewarding it is. And that, once again, that's another parallel to life, right? Not only to video games, but just in general, life in general, right? The harder, when you earn something, it feels way better than when you're given something. When you actually went out there and earned it, whether that's a meal, whether that's someone's respect, whether that's a paycheck, like it just feels better when you go out there and you get it, as opposed to someone handing it down to you. Um, I could draw a million examples as to why it's not a theory, it's a fact, like why this is true. It would be interesting to see a game that's like Wayward with like modern graphics. I'm sure plenty of people have thought this, right? Like imagine if Wayward was like remade with like in the Unreal Engine. It sounds almost funny saying it because that'll be such a radical departure from the way it looks now. Wayward. And I'm just thinking like, damn, that'll be maybe there is a game like that. Once again, here we go, right? Like I wish there was a game that was like Wayward but 3D, and then there's like 50 of them. Um, but it would be interesting to see, like literally Wayward, like that same title, like reimagined, right? And then just make it. It doesn't. You know what? Even if it was like voxel, right? Or even 16 bits, kind of like Stardew Valley, right? Or like Starbound, games like that. Both games are awesome, by the way. Stardew Valley, I'm not crazy about because I know you could do combat and all that in that game, but it's not really the central focus of the game. It's like about relationships and harvesting and Harvest Moon. I never was wild about those games neither. Although I've always it's one of those games that I see other people play and I'm like, this is a cool game, but I don't see myself playing it. If that makes any sense. But Starbound's awesome. Starbound. I didn't put a lot of hours into Starbound, but I believe I put just enough to like really enjoy it. Starbound's man. I don't know why there isn't a part two. What's Chucklefish waiting for? Hmm. Anyways, it would be interesting to just see a more upgraded version of Wayward. I feel like that would be received a lot better because, like I said, Wayward is a niche game. Niche. Uh, and you know, at any given time, I think the most amount of people that I've seen on online servers was like four people spread across the world. It was like two people in Japan and like two people in California. And I was like, wow, this is a very obscure game. And I don't mean that in a demeaning way or to be in like, you know, not trying to berate it. Excuse me. I'm just saying that like that's how tiny like the fan base is, and it's because like there's just it's not a high demand for these type of games, but it's still awesome to see that people still take the time to make games like this, knowing that they're not going to be like major hits. Because normally when you start some sort of a business, which making a video game is a business, right? Because you keep updating it, you keep releasing DLC, you keep getting some sort of money back. So for you to make a business decision where you're like, only a small percentage of people will buy this, right? That's an interesting way, right, to think. Like, I'm going to go in business, right? But only a small percentage of people will buy this product. And it's like, that's literally the opposite of what you would want if you start a business. You want everyone to buy your product so you can maximize profits. But um, I'm not going against it. I'm like I said, I'm fucking happy games like this exist. It's cool to know that there are people who just want to make a game that just like, hey, this is something I would enjoy, and fuck it. If I don't make money from it, I don't make money from it. God damn. You don't see that a lot nowadays. I'm looking right now. Who's the developer of this? What's his name? Or their name? Unlock. UNLOK. And I think it's just one developer. Which I do got to add, by the way, that this game is still getting updated. And I believe it's been out for quite a long time. Right here it says April 22nd, 2016. And I believe that's when it came on Steam. But if I'm not mistaken, I've seen like reviews or people talking about this game as early as 2014. So it might have been out for a lot longer than I thought, or that we think, or whatever. There is something to be said about that, though, right? Like people who stick to their guns and just, like I like when developers say things like, I don't know if they necessarily mean it, but I've heard developers say things that I like to hear, like, I want to make a game that I want to play, right? That I love that, because you're not catering to an audience. You're not, because the second you cater to somebody, right, you start to like adjust your likes. You start to, adjust the way you are, the way you dress, the way you talk, the things you believe in. Once you start to become a people pleaser, once you start to look for admiration upon others or from others, like when you stick to your guns and you're like, this is who I am, as long as you're not an asshole, right? Because a lot of people do that too. Some assholes are just assholes and they're like, this is who I am. It's like, no, 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 you can change, asshole. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, that doesn't give you an excuse to remain an asshole by telling people that this is who you are. You can change. If you're being a cunt, you can change that around. Be like, I could be a better person. You know what I mean? I guess what I'm trying to say is just sticking to your guns, whether it's in the video game world or in real life. There's something admirable about that, and you see less and less of that in 2024 and in the recent years. Once again, we can get into politics, we can get into the economy. You know, there, more companies are kind of just bending to the whims of the small community of people who are disliking things, but they're the loudest, right? So if 80% of the people like that product, but 20% are really loud, they're going to cater to those 20%. And sadly, we see that everywhere, right? Through medical institutions, financial institutions, hospitals, uh, colleges, um, you name it, like entertainment, film, media in general, music, like people, lots of corporations, they're scared. They're scared that the small minority that are very tiny but loud, they're scared of their scathing words, and they adjust everything to their needs and completely forget about the other 80%. Like, I believe that's them being pussies, in other words. Like, I believe you need to stick to your guns in this time. Like, understand that, like, hey, there are, like, no matter what product you sell, or no matter what, anything, it could be, you can make music, you can be a composer, or you can literally have a business where you sell a product. Like, there's always going to be people that don't like your shit, and you can't cater to those people, man. You got to cater to the ones who do like your shit. And it's the complete opposite in today's time. It's very weird, and I feel like that's all across the board, at least here in America. Although I know some other places like Canada and Australia, they're losing it, man. There's a lot of crazy shit that's happening, right? Like this liberal shit that's going on right now. Like, without getting into specific instances, because I don't want to I don't want I don't want that smoke, man. Like, I have my views and I'm not gonna back away from my views, but I'm not gonna sit here and argue with motherfuckers online or in real life about, my beliefs and your beliefs. Like, what's that gonna solve? Like, I feel like at the end of the day, you're just gonna walk away misunderstanding me and thinking that I'm full of hate. And I'm like, okay, for that, just let's just both fuck off and not even mention it. But there's a lot of crazy shit going on. Like, I do believe that there is such a thing as too much freedom. I do. Right? Like, if you had a child, you're not going to let your child do everything your child wants whenever your child wants. There has to be rules, there has to be regulations. Same thing with the government. Same thing with, policies in colleges and in hospitals. Like, there has to be a cutoff limit where you go, hey, okay, enough. We support a certain type of demographic, but that certain demographic doesn't have to be in absolutely everything we do. Like, all right, let's have some limitations. It's not the case nowadays. It it's wild, man. And yeah, what the fuck does this have to do with Wayward? I have no idea. I guess being on an island surrounded by skeletons and ghosts is probably better than being into politics. I guess that's what I'm saying. So get any chance you get to get stranded in a remote island, take it. Just fucking go for it, man. Get stranded on an island on some Tom Hanks castaway shit. Make friends with volleyballs and fish with fucking spears. I hope to get into this little subgenre of, like, I don't even know what to call it. Simulations? That's the best stab that I can give you. Taking a stab at it, I would say that's the best guess that I can give you of what games like Wayward and Neo Scavenger and Caves of Cod and Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead, and what's the other game? Far Out or something like that. I don't know. It's a game that's been around since like the 90s and it continuously gets updated. These games are simulation games, but they're like, is there a specific word for it? Like, now they're calling old FPS games like Doom, they're calling them boomer shooters, which is kind of funny. Well, it was funny. But now it's literally a category, boomer shooters. Like, and it makes me feel like an old man because, when I grew up on Doom and Duke Nukem and Turok, those type of games, and now they're considered boomer. I'm not even a boomer, so it doesn't even make sense. But I guess they mean boomer and like just an old person. Thanks. I do. I don't know what it's called, these categories, but they're interesting to me, and they do, like that guy said in the review, they do scratch this part of my brain that's like, I'm like, that's what I'm looking for in games, like playing games like, I keep bringing DayZ up because this is a game that, like, I came to DayZ late. I had played it before a few years ago, but I didn't get into it as much as I did this year, or sorry, 2023. Like, once I got into the mechanics of DayZ, I was like, wow, there's no other game that I've ever played that's like this. It's like it checks all the boxes. There are some things that, of course, that I don't like. I do wish that there was like actual native AI bots or armed AI bandits that are NPCs. Like, because not all the time people want to play with PvP. Not all the time other players want to play with other players. Um, Once again, you don't have to remove. People get pissed off, right? I see a lot of people get pissed off in the comments, like, if you want PvE, go play another game. DayZ's all about PvP. And you know what? You're wrong. It's not all about PvP. There's a reason why there's PvE elements in there. Hunting, fishing, building. That's not PvP. I mean, sure, you can use it for PvP. You could eat fish to gain strength to go PvP. You could build something to make some sort of a base against people that want to PvP. Yeah, you can swing it that way, but that's not the way you can use it that way. But there's a lot of there's a lot of PvE to do in DayZ. So it is not strictly a PvP game. Those people who say that are wrong. It is half of it, it's PvP, or a good percentage of it, but it's not all of it. So people who tell you that, they're not right. They're not telling you the whole truth. It ain't just a PvP. If you treat it that way, or just because you see your friends treat it that way, or other people treat DayZ like it's a strictly PvP game, that doesn't mean it is a PvP game. That just means they're treating it that way. There's two different things, right? What it is and what you think it is are two different things. But either way you put it, with that said, it is mostly catered to PvP. Even though there's PvE elements, it is catered to PvP players. And Scum is another game that's a competitor to DayZ, and they're right now in the process of adding armed AI NPCs, which I'm like, see, they get it. Like that's not a lot of people like me. I'm not crazy about playing with other players. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't mind it. I'll do PvP, sure. But like the fact that I can, like, let's say I'm like, okay, I don't want to PvP no more and I'm on an official server. I'm like, okay, now I just kind of want to build a base, or I kind of want to go hunt, boop, sniped in the head. Like now it's like, okay, now I didn't have no control over that. Some guy just killed me just because he wanted to kill me. He KOS me. Everybody doesn't like KOS unless you're specifically playing a PvP game. Which, by the way, going off on a tangent of DayZ, there is PvP in Wayward. It's kind of weird because it's like, it's 8-bit PvP. It's like if Dragon Warrior had PvP. It's very odd, very odd. But it's cool that it's there. That, and if you wanted to do that, you can totally do that. That's pretty cool. Although I don't even think there's one PvP server, even though it's in the game. But I'm glad that it's there. It's really cool. But I know there's military simulators like Arma, which DayZ came out of, and I've been thinking about getting into that, but I'm just not. I mean, it is intimidating. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm like, what the fuck? What do I do? Where do I even start? Especially for like a new armor player. I don't know what I'm doing, and it does look interesting as hell because I like the realistic aspects of it, But I don't know. Maybe I'll look into it. I know I have Armor 3 and I think Armor 2 in my library. I'm thinking about Reforger, although some people are like, hold out because it's still being worked on, lots of bugs, not enough content, blah blah blah. Eventually it'll become a thing, and I don't understand that completely, the whole Armor thing, because it's like you've got the Armor Reforger engine is going to be used to make Armor 4, but Armor Reforger is not Armor 4. It's just an engine that Arma 4 will eventually be built with. But in the meantime, you can play that engine and make scenarios, and it is like an Arma game itself. So Arma Reforger is Arma, but it's not Arma 4. It's somehow stuck between Arma 3 and Arma 4, so it's Arma 3.5. Or is it some weird spin off? Or is it just a giant tech demo? I don't know the timeline chronological order of Arma Reforger. I'm still trying to figure that out, but it seems really cool, and maybe I'll start off with that, since people say that's more simplified because they're catering more to, like, console players. And I get it. That's what happened with Oblivion, right? Like, one of my friends told me that when he was playing Morrowind, he loved it because there was a lot of technicality involved in Morrowind. And then Oblivion was the first Elder Scrolls, if I'm not mistaken, to come out for consoles. And then they kind of dumbed some of the mechanics and the systems down from the Elder Scrolls Morrowind. They dumbed it down for console players because console players don't have as much access to, like, buttons and menus like PC players do. So it kind of got watered down experience, and some people feel Reforgers like that. So I can see that coming from someone who has played Oblivion, even though Oblivion was my first Elder Scrolls game. Um, I can totally see the big difference between Oblivion and Skyrim, right? Like, Oblivion was a little more deeper in the fact that, like, your weapons worn out and all this, and, like, they kind of removed all that for Skyrim. Skyrim was more streamlined and accessible, and, like, I know why they did it, but it feels like a loss because now it's like, okay, now this game is going to become dumbed down and simplified, right? And, like, that's not, you lose a lot of the charm that the Elder Scrolls had, right? Because a lot of people like tinkering, messing with conditions of weapons and stuff like that. I get it. Pick it up. Like I said, you can find Wayward. When I say pick it up, I mean like Wayward. Like, pick it up if you ever see it. If you're someone who's, if you're a young person, if you're like in your 20s and you like these type of games, wow, congratulations. Like, that's unheard of, right? But not saying that 20-year-olds and young people are not capable of getting into, like, these little crafting deeper simulation difficult games. Like, totally capable of. This young generation is very smart. Maybe they lack a lot of experience, but maybe some common sense. But I'm just picking on you guys. But you guys are smart. They have access to all, to any burning question that their little brain comes out with, comes up with, they can literally type it on the phone and get an answer to, right? I didn't have that when I was like in my 20s, when I was like 21. I think I had a fucking Nokia phone that I only could play Snake on because I couldn't even afford to actually have phone service on it. Yep, I got it for $2. Wayward. Um, Even if you spend $8 on it, that's great because you get to support the developer, and that's great, man. Because this is a game that I'll keep my eye, like I said, I'll keep my eyes on for quite a while now. I do like it a lot. I urge you to play it, but just I won't sit here and recommend it to everybody. Just look up some videos before you do because it ain't for everyone. It's just the truth. It's for a very small select demographic of people. Probably people my age who are going on 40, like me. I'm gonna be 40 soon. The more I say that, the more it's like I'm trying to fight the shock value of that. It scares the shit out of me when I think about it. But in a weird way, I kind of want to embrace being old, the gray hair, and not giving a shit about anything anymore, and just wearing fucking old people's sweaters and Kango hats or whatever old people wear. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, if you do see it on sale, even better, grab it. But give it a look, check it out, man. Maybe maybe this game will give you the same impression that it gave me, which is like, hey man, I didn't know that I needed something like this in my gaming life, right? Like something that's pretty cool that I could dive into from time to time. And I'm gonna be keeping an eye on it. I know the developer has been updating it for years now, and that's awesome to see that he hasn't dropped support on it. And we'll see, maybe even more cooler updates in the future. All right, thanks for listening.